welcome to today's episode of the Made for More podcast. I am very excited to be joined by Erin from Youth Opportunity. And it's interesting, when we were setting up today's interview and the podcast episode, Erin and I were both gushing over being big fans of each other. And I'm very happy to be able to share why I'm such a fan of Erin and the work that her and the team do at Youth Opportunity. So good morning and welcome, Erin. How are you?
Hi, Ali. I'm great. I'm so excited to finally meet you over online, but that's the closest we've had so far, which is amazing.
Isn't it so funny in this day and age of connectivity, and we can, follow each other, and I feel like we've known each other for years, but we actually haven't really met in real life yet, but we will very, very soon, yeah. I'm sure. So before we get too far into it, I would love if you could share with me and with the listeners a little bit about where you've come from and where you're going.
Yeah, great question. Where have I come from? Ooh, that's an interesting one. I heard someone recently say where I've come from is in my face. If you look at my face, and where I'm going is in my soul. And I thought, oh, that's deep. I'll just go more literal. So where I've come from, because I'm quite freckly, I spend a lot of time at the beach. So I grew up very humble beginnings in central Queensland. Grew up around a lot of the things you don't want kids to grow up around. Managed to have some post-traumatic growth and spread my wings and moved to South Australia as a young adult and with my family. Managed to get my family to relocate to the big smoke of Adelaide, if you can believe it.
Going places.
Yeah. I know, right? Well, compared to a small mining town in central Queensland, it's pretty big. Yeah. And I spent quite a lot of my career, as you were saying before, in one very large company. So I had about 11 jobs over 17 years in the water utility here in Adelaide. And I feel like I went through about 7 different industries in that one place. I feel very fortunate for the development and growth opportunities in that company. Some tough times, but also some amazing growth. And for about the last 3 years now, I guess I've been here at Youth Opportunities, which is a South Australian non-profit working with young people in our community. Prior to joining Youth Ops as my day job, it was my side hustle. So I was a volunteer on the board of Youth Opportunities for a few years prior. And the board, just one Thursday afternoon, the chairman asked to have a meeting with me, and I didn't really know what he wanted to chat about, but wandered across Victoria Square to see him in his workplace. And he said, do you want to quit your day job and come make Youth Ops your day job? And could you take a pay cut while you're at it? That'd be great. Because we'd had about 3 shots at recruiting a succession plan for the CE, who, bless him, had come out of retirement to manage Youth Ops as a favour to the founder, and it was trying to get back into retirement. And because I'd been on the board for a few years and they knew me and I'd supported them with strategy and a whole bunch of other things, I was a bit of a safe bet for them, really. And I said, sure, I'd love to make it my day job and take a pay cut and come live a world of enormous purpose. So that's where I've been. And where I'm going. I guess I've been having a lot of chats with people lately about the difference between goal planning and intention setting, and whether it's lazy that I just set intentions instead of goals, or is that evolved and woke of me? I'm not sure.
We'll go with
so thanks, mate. Thanks. Going woke. I've decided to try it for this year. So this year I'm all about growth. So I'm growing in my garden at home. I'm growing my muscles. I'm trying to put on some muscle mass, and I'm growing Youth Ops, which is a big change agenda for us. We have aspirations to be much bigger and have a greater impact for more young people right around the world. And the world of digital now makes that so much more feasible. So that's where I'm headed. I'm headed for growth.
I love that. So when you talk about, the growth happening within Youth Ops, you're talking, because at the moment it's South Australian based.
Yeah,
so it's
that's
just
right.
Kids or young people within our community within South Australia, and you're going to go global.
Yeah, so primarily we're about 23 years old now, so we've been around for a long time. There's about 13,000 graduates of our programs. So we've, some of those are in their early 30s now. A few of them work here, which is lovely.
Ah,
Some of them are
lovely.
teachers in some of the schools we still work in. Some of them are international opera stars. They're all over the place. And of
Wow.
course, some of them are 15. So we primarily work with 15-year-olds. This year
Yeah.
is the first year that, well, technically last year. Last year is the first year that we started working with young people right around Australia.
Yeah.
So we do work with people interstate now through our online platform, and we also can train people up to deliver youth ops programs themselves,
Oh, wow.
sort of under kind of license model. We send them the manuals, we give them the training, and that's my favourite model technically because it builds capacity and community for local approaches.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely lining up for that. I just had one of our trainers in here saying, "Oh, I've just got this amazing company down in the southeast want to sign us up to work with their apprentices, and we've got apprentices all around Australia doing our programs now." So we've got donors in America who said, "Man, you got to come to the Napa Valley. Kids over there have got the same problems they have here in Australia, and there's nothing like you in the States, and can you just hurry up?" And we said, "Well, yeah, sure, apart from the time zone difference, we
Yeah.
can do that now." It's really wonderful. The challenges that we had last year in COVID have really set us up for growth in the future. So it's silver linings.
Yeah, I was going to say it does sound like a silver lining, and I'm finding that as well. That where we were located in South Australia, and previously it was quite isolating and small town, well, small city, I guess. And now the fact that everyone knows what Zoom is and everyone knows how to get online, mostly everyone's broad language there, but it does literally opens up the door to all of this international and being able to impact people at a far wider reach than what we have ever had in the past, which I think is just so wonderful that
Yeah.
that youth ops can do that and figure out the time difference a little bit, or split
Yeah,
shifts, who
that's
knows.
your biggest problem.
Yeah.
You tackle some digital poverty, sure, and some literacy. Yes, you can account for those things.
Yeah.
But much more when people have an appetite to work online. You see the telehealth stuff now with psychologists as well. Like if
Yeah.
people come at accessing support face-to-face, one-on-one with people, but online, then it removes so many barriers that we've had up until now. And even as a non-profit, so none of the people we work with in the school communities pay for our program.
Yeah.
Students don't pay, the families don't pay. The school does make a contribution because it's important for us to make sure that that school is tackling this as a whole of school cultural approach,
Mhm.
that we're really partnering with them.
Yeah.
And the school leaders, the principals who sign us up, definitely we have a partnership with them. They're investing and our donors are investing. It's really important to them and it's important to us. But the families and the young people don't pay. And that and we have actually a 2-year model where we'll run a program for a school term, but then those young people get coaching from us one-on-one for 2 years up
Wowza.
until they finish high school, which is a really rich program. It's it's a program that gets amazing evidence-based outcomes, but it's expensive to
Yeah.
run that way, especially when you're talking about being in communities. We work all around rural and regional South Australia, as well as in the metro, outer metro area.
Yeah.
Not so much in a metro, because we do, as a charity, work in mostly areas that are experiencing more challenges. So yeah, it's a really expensive model. So the online opportunities for us means that we can reach more people with our wonderful supporters' dollars as well.
That's amazing. That's so incredible. And young children having, or young, what do you call them? Young adults, young children, old
Young
children,
people.
young people, having that continual support through those, I guess, those tough and challenging years, the final years of high school. There's a lot going on there, work-wise and
Yeah.
socially, and trying to get jobs. That's amazing. I had no idea it went for that long. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
What I'd love to know a little bit more about is when you were doing your intro, you talked about being in the one organisation, working in utility, but having, multiple jobs across that time. And I find this really interesting because I have a similar background, because I think, we kind of tend to wipe the slate clean when it comes to working in one organisation. But tell me a little bit around, how moving and shifting within one organisation gave you the foundation that you have now to be able to run youth ops.
Yeah, such a great question. And Ali, you were in kind of like a HRE sort of background for a
So
while.
I worked in finance for a
Yeah,
long time, banking and
finance.
finance as a industry, but did a lot of different roles within the
Yeah.
company. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was in utilities, and they're huge businesses, and they're enormous, and they've got a lot of technical experts in them, and they need to. You've got lots of scientists, accountants, engineers, and then you've got customer service people and payroll people, all sorts of different roles, but some really technical roles. So in that organization, I just became known as a generalist in a world of technical specialists. And
Yeah.
I was the person who they would kind of call in where something was a bit weird, a bit multi-team, some challenges needed to kind of break through some change. And I just over time built up this reputation as being the kind of the Mary Poppins that you call to come in for a few years or a couple of months to fix something up and then, get it to the next level and then pass it on to the next person.
Yeah.
Technically, I had a technical background. I started in IT, in information
Oh, right.
technology. I got an IT degree as my undergraduate. And but I also did marketing as part of that degree because I worked out after my first coding subject that was kind of boring. Like, surely we can just get computers to do this, can't we? Why is a human doing this? And it's a business degree. You do a bit of everything. And so I did the intro to marketing, and I went, wow, humans! You're telling me that we do things because of all these other factors, and we can influence them for good or for evil. And I remember one of the biggest light bulbs came when they were talking to us about how McDonald's designed the seats for it to be uncomfortable after something like 3.5 minutes, because they want to
Oh,
get you out after that time because they'd worked it out. And it just blew my mind that the world was being designed to encourage humans subconsciously to behave in certain ways. And
yeah.
how amazing is that? And I never wanted to go into advertising marketing, but I wanted to go into strategic marketing. How do you use this power for good and for change and influence?
Love
So
it.
I ended up doing a minor in marketing and doing most of my subjects actually about that. So I got a job in IT when I got to SA Water, but from there I just went out and worked in all the really complex business change areas. And I've also done an MBA, and so my life experience in those roles in that company was kind of like a real world MBA. I worked in the customer strategy
Yeah.
areas. I ran social media for a while. I did school education. I ran the governance PMO, project management office, for the infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
I ran the infrastructure investment portfolio and had CPAs working for me. I wasn't an accountant or an engineer, but
Yeah.
I was sitting managing $2 billion, and these
Mm.
engineers and accountants would come in and say, can I have $4 million for my tank?
Yeah.
And then, I can't even imagine what was going through their heads. Like, I'm asking this young woman if I can have 4 million. She doesn't know anything about engineering or finance, and she's the one that gets to say whether I get the money or not.
Yeah.
But I was just really good at asking provocative questions and
Yeah.
making sure that there was robust decision making and governance and connecting with customer, which is what that organization is actually really great at.
Yeah.
So I was the right person to stay out of the detail, be a generalist, and know enough to ask the great questions and how people should work together, but not enough to get into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, amazing. So it meant that then coming into somewhere like youth opportunities, and you're now a chief executive, which is fascinating, a chief executive in a not-for-profit.
Right.
I've got some really amazing allies who are chief executives and not-for-profits that I lean on heavily for is this normal?
Yeah. Is
This
this what we're
one,
doing? Am
I
I?
know one day I'm getting the keys cut and answering the reception phone, and then the next day I'm coming up with a 10-year growth strategy and how to approach the federal government about changes in school curriculum. Like, is this
Yeah.
normal? Though, yeah,
Wow.
that's
One
that's
end
kind
of
of what the
the
job is. And
yeah.
I guess growing up in a large organization with diversity of roles kind of cut my teeth for that.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And it sounds like it's given you such a platform around not having to know how to do everything, but being able to find the right people and ask the right questions to get things done as well.
Oh, so right, because it's a trap to think that you do know. And even here at Youth Ops, we mostly work with 15 to say 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
And if you want to stand in front of a group of 15 or 17-year-olds and tell them that you know everything about the world, then you're in denial because you don't know their world.
And they're like, have
And
you heard of TikTok?
I'm 41 now, so what I went through, what was happening in my world when I was 15 is just nothing like what these young people are facing today. The world is so different from, like 15, 20 years ago. So yeah, I always like to remember that I don't know everything.
Yeah. And I can imagine that, the youth of today are very good at reminding us about that. As you may or may not know, I've got 4 young boys. And the idea of them being 15 or 17 or any kind of teen in between totally freaks me out. So, and even, they're probably still 10 years away from that. And I just think their life as teenagers in 10 years is going to be very different to what teenagers are right now. And it blows my mind. I'm not ready to, I'm not ready to face that challenge yet. No.
Don't worry. They're not either. It's okay. You'll both grow together.
Oh, freaky stuff. So I love the work that you guys do at Youth Ops, but tell me a little bit more program that you're running. I know recently on LinkedIn, that's where I like to see all of your bits and pieces. You've been giving a bit of a summary about your program, your personal leadership program. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I think that personal leadership is one of these things that even as adults in leadership roles don't understand the concept of what personal leadership is. So what are you teaching, your 15 to 17-year-olds that are part of the program? What is it?
Yeah, great question. So we talk to young people about this leadership program that we run at Youth Ops is all about you leading yourself. So the person you are leading is you. And we'll often hear those in management leadership circles that, got to fit your own mask first, or you have to learn how to lead yourself before you lead others. Yeah. So it's all of that. But with 15-year-olds, like I was 30 before I really started diving into management and leadership programs. So it just blows my mind that we get to do this with young people. So it's all about their locus of control and helping them realize that they are in the driver's seat of their life. They can't choose everything that goes on in their life. They can't choose where they live. They can't drive probably yet either at 15, but they actually have all of the power over their habits and attitudes. So we spend a lot of time talking to them about neuroplasticity and how their brains work and how we can get ourselves into really positive, healthy habits that will lead us towards success, and that you as a personal leader have that power. So you can't always influence everyone around you and the things going on in your world. And yes, you do have to go to maths if you want to be successful long term. So you can't choose everything, but you can choose the habits and attitudes, and we can give you the skills that will lead you towards your version of success. So a really important thing for a personal leader is that they need to understand their version of success. So for us, success is happiness. But for them, what does happiness mean? What is going to make them happy? So we spend the first couple of weeks with them. So it's a day a week for 10 weeks is the traditional model that we run. The first couple of weeks, spending a lot of time doing that high-level goal planning and helping them connect with your visualization, a whole bunch of other things that connect with what does a successful future look like for you in your career, in your relationships with your family, your friends, with yourself, your relationship with yourself and your self-image and your self-confidence. And once you can visualize those things, how do we help you build the skills and habits and the attitudes that will take you that way in life? And yes, let's talk about your careers and let's talk about the steps that'll get you to your careers, but also more broadly than that. A lot of these young people don't know what they want to be, or they're struggling with one of 5 options. And we kind of help them lean into that and say, that's okay. You just have to decide what you do first. Yeah. And you have to decide what habits and attitudes and what type of person you want to be and how you're leading yourself that way. So if you end up a nurse first and then a teacher later, that's okay. Yeah. Or if you start nursing, you don't like it, you go to teaching, that's okay. It's the fundamental stuff inside you that will be more enduring, and building your resilience towards the challenges that will come your way, and how you're choosing growth every day to build your resilience. So how you lead yourself in a nutshell.
I love that. And are you finding with the work that you're doing now with the youth, is a lot of people, or a lot of older people that haven't probably experienced this at a young age in those formative years, that a lot of people put their worth around their jobs. Whereas if we're thinking about building growth mindset and how you actually want to show up as a person, then you can, I don't want to say chop and change jobs, you become less about the job that you're doing and more about the kind of person that you're showing up. I don't know if it's been going long enough for you to see some evidence of that?
Oh, yeah. We've got, like decades of graduates now. Interestingly, so you've been seeing some things on LinkedIn because I'm personally running a training program this term. So I've been had that goal for myself since I joined Youth Opportunities full time, that I will run this program one day. So I'm doing a review myself every week of how that's going with the group I'm working with.
Yeah.
And you're so right. Like, you and I lived our lives as generalists and found our value in being flexible. And, I often will share with the students when it's relevant that my husband became a teacher in his late 30s. He'd never been to uni, he'd never been a teacher. And so, it's never too late. And I've got friends who are nurses who then went to be teachers, and engineers who became florists. And, you can rediscover yourself. But I've actually found, for the most part, with these young people, it's already, the future is too overwhelming for them to come at them starting there. It's almost like I'm finding with these, particularly, as I said, 15-year-olds, year 10, they've got really serious subject choices coming up next year. Year 11 and 12. We're asking them to think about their next 2 to 4 years, like what's happening post school. Are you going to uni? Are you going to TAFE? Are you getting an apprenticeship? What's going on for you? And it's almost better for us. It is better for us to help ground them in a path. Choose a path. Yes, don't hold it too tightly to the point you're going to get anxious, but unless you set yourself some goals, you're aimless. What are you aiming for? So we kind of course correcting on two ways there. Find your version of happiness, find what success is. For us, a lot of that is in your own self-confidence and your ability to get through tough times, your resilience, no matter where you end up. But you need to have some goals, because otherwise, what are you aiming for? And it's too easy then to procrastinate and not be motivated and not choose growth because there's no reason to. So we work with them to help discover, what are your reasons to be motivated? How can we help you be motivated and push through? Last week, the activity we did is the diamond in the poo. Like, what is the diamond that you love so much, that your goal, that you're so willing, the $1 million diamond in your future that you are so willing to dig through poo for? Because sometimes you don't want to go to school, or you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't want to do your homework, or you don't want to have a tough conversation with the teacher that you're not getting on with, or there'll be things that are hard, and unless you've got something to motivate you, you won't push through. You would just give up and procrastinate. It has been a fascinating journey for me to work with them.
Working directly with them. I love it. I've been loving your updates, actually. What have we got this week? Which is amazing. So do you find when you do kind of get into that goal setting space with these young people, because I think there's a number of adults as well that aren't familiar with actually goal setting. Normally around New Year's, everyone's like, I'm going to get fit, or I'm going to do something or another, and it's all very loose and a bit unsure. And then come February, everyone's sort of forgotten, and then probably about December, week before Christmas, we're like, what we should do actually on the 1st of January, I'm going to set a New Year's resolution. And I think this idea of actually forward thinking and projecting yourself into the future, what does it actually look like, is not a common concept to many people. How are you finding youth are they a bit more flexible, as in a bit more open to this, dreaming about what their future could look like?
Well, one of the activities we do is a dream sheet.
There you go.
And then there are a couple of visualizations where we ask them to wake up in their ideal future, and we take them through a guided kind of meditation of what that looks like. And there's another activity around, it's your 60th birthday, and what are people saying about you? Not what you did, but who you are. So there's a few ways that we help them come at it. And again, we've got groups of usually about 18 young people at a time. So some of these tools will really resonate for some of them. Some loved the visualization. They could imagine the taste of the pasta as they came home from work that night to their favorite dinner, or exactly what their office looked like when they were a psychologist in future. And others loved the more tactical, here is a diary planner of Monday to Sunday, every hour of the week. How are you spending that time? How many hours do you have to play with? So everyone's different. They'll pick up different things. So we come at it lots of different ways, but they are definitely sponges. And some will work with some tools better than others. A really critical part of our program is the group work, but then also one-on-one coaching. So while we take groups through these really great experiential learning tools and normalizing in the group by talking about, hands up how many people have had that challenge with their siblings, or hands up how many people have got that challenge with one of their teachers. That's really great normalizing stuff. We'll also take them out for one-on-one interviews where I can sit with them individually and I'll say, Ali, your self-image is great, your confidence great, your self-talk's fantastic. You just don't know what you want to do when you leave school. Let's talk about that. Whereas the next person I take out of the room, it might be, Erin, you really know what you want to be. You want to be a marine biologist, and that's great. You've worked all that out, but your self-confidence and your ability to speak up and to form relationships with those around you to get support is something we need to work on. So let's work on that. So the great thing about the breadth of the tools in the program is that they can take what they want, and the coaching makes sure that we set them specific challenges related to their needs and their goals. They tell us what their goals are. What do you want to get out of the program? And that's what we work on with them.
Yeah. So how do these teenagers get into the program? Do they find their own way? Are they nominated through schools, or
yeah,
that's
a great question. Yeah, well, we give them a map, they find their way. No, that sounds really cute. We should totally do a map. No, so we will work primarily. Our 10-week program is in secondary schools. A principal, the school leadership would go into partnership with us. Once a school says, yes, we're doing this, we go in and we talk to the year 10s about the program. We have graduates there that do most of the talking to the young people about what they got out of it. It was like, don't listen to us, listen to other people who've done the program. And then they apply, we interview them for 5 whole minutes, and then we put a cohort of 18 students together. In some schools, we'll run once a year, so they kind of get that one shot at it. In other schools, we'll run every term. We try to get at least 30% of every cohort of year 10s through the program to get a whole of school change and ripples. So Salisbury High, that we've been at for 23 years, runs 3 programs a year. There's just a language in that school of stars and black holes, which is one of our core concepts, and kicking the cat, which is another concept. Like, it's just in the school. You don't have to have done the Youth Ops program. Woodville High is another one, but they just talk that way because we've got enough of a critical mass for we also run parent and teacher workshops. So we've got parents, teachers and the students having this shared language. We this year, so I think in about another 2 months, we'll have a publicly available program. We also have a workplace-based program, so we're working with some sporting clubs, some workplaces, apprenticeship organisations, job network providers that they can recommend to young people up to the age of 25 to do our program. But again, the young people would still have to say, I want to do the program. We don't kind of have, they can be encouraged, but we don't have a referral, you're signed up, because that sense of agents and that sense of, I want to change something in my life, or I see an opportunity to improve my future, is really important for all these tools. Otherwise, it might go nowhere.
Wow. I love it. Let's shift gears a little bit. So you've been working at Youth Ops for about 3 years and CE for nearly 2? So tell me a little bit around, some of the, I guess, the challenges that you've had as part of your own leadership journey, from going as an employee to now, setting the direction, joining a new team, jumping in. Tell me what, I guess, you've found challenging and how you've overcome that.
Such a good question. I think in the early years, definitely the biggest challenges were around a shift in industry. The not-for-profit youth kind of sector, very different to the industries that I'd come from. We're talking about highly professionalised, structured industry. So I was in government, in utilities, in project management worlds. So very different. That was kind of interesting to navigate and try and work out new language sets and who's who in the zoo and where are my allies. I'm a big networker and partnership person. So for me, it was trying to find the allies. Who are the like-minded people? Who else is trying to do great work in our field? There are a lot of small charities and organisations, and it's patchy, like some are national, some are just in Tasmania, some are just in rural New South Wales, and trying to link those up and find the people I could work with definitely is keeping me very busy for 3 years. I have got an amazing tribe now, not just for myself as a young female leader, but also generally in our sector. And the other interesting thing for me was the shift from a volunteer board member to a chief executive. So it has taken me a while to stop being acting like a board member. And letting the board act like a board and letting me act like a chief executive, because I think in most organisation that dynamic between what a board does and what a chief executive does, especially in nonprofits, is really variable depending on different skills and experience, who's got the time and the and expertise. So that's been really challenging. And as I said, I'm a big fan of peer mentoring. So I've got about 6 peer mentors at the moment.
Lovely.
Peer mentors or coaches who I bounce questions and challenges off of.
Yeah, wonderful. And I've heard you talk quite a bit about play in the workplace. And, we're big joy seekers here. So I love this. And I can see you clapping, which is, I think maybe you love it too. So talk to me a little bit about, it's not a new concept, but it might be new to some of our listeners that aren't, looking into this style of working and what it means. Unpack it for me.
Oh, where does lead with play? Yeah, so I think here at Youth Ops, I'm one of the least playful people, which is delightful. But certainly in my professional industries career, I was by far the most playful person. And it did take me a long time until probably about my mid-30s, I suppose, to really own that. Had a lot of, I guess, kind of like imposter syndrome. I was really throttling it back. I was not being my authentic self all day, every day, because it was so out of match with what was around me.
Yeah.
And then I took a sabbatical for 3 months and came back fully myself. And that was a bit intense for people, but I unleashed all of the Erin.
Yeah.
And it just meant that what I saw in that period where I just went, you know what, I fundamentally believe that we can have fantastic business success through encouraging playful cultures. And I'm just going to be myself and go for it. And I saw the results come in, culture surveys and internal team profile dynamics and business outcomes flowed from the teams I was working in and leading.
Yeah.
We were just being more playful, and it looks different for everyone. It's really important to have inclusive play. But the big thing for me, I found in professional businesses is that people literally would say to me, we're not Google, Erin. You can't play here. It's not Google, And it's like there's only one version. You either are a stuffy business person or you're Google. There's no in between. And there is so much in between. You don't have to have, here at Youth Ops, we don't have a budget for funky furniture and internal slides like they do at Google. But we find lots of different ways to play. And there's so much research now that talks about how team bonding and well-being are enhanced, relationship forming enhanced through playfulness.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can look so different for everyone. For me, it's wearing cartoon t-shirt. I'm wearing a Sonic the Hedgehog t-shirt today. For my husband, who works in another utility, a different utility, he's an ex-history teacher. So on his Microsoft Teams background every day, he puts a day in history image, like an image of,
And changes it.
He said every day he changes that. It takes
That's
him all of
fantastic.
3 minutes. He Googles what's in history. Last week, it was, the first sale of the South Australian wool company. And so he had a picture of wool behind him. And he goes to all of his team meetings. People are like, what's with the wool, man? Oh, yeah, well, sheep shearing, blah, blah. And he's had someone say to him on Friday, I really look forward to coming to meetings that I know you're going to be in because I want to see what's behind you. And if that is not a powerful indicator of how he's helping people get excited about being at work, interested in talking to their colleagues, and then, switching really quickly to let's talk about business. Don't spend an hour talking about wool shearing, but then, it's for him, that's a really accessible way of playing. I mean, there's team building. You can do, obviously, art therapy. There's amazing people, Belle in Adelaide. There's a guy, Frank, who does Lego serious play for strategic planning. You can go tree climbing. There's so many different ways that you can, but I'm a big believer that playful cultures are really successful business cultures.
I 100% agree. And I think somewhere along the line, we got all a little bit too serious. And then because, the person next to us was serious, then we decided to be serious. And, before you know it, there's a whole bunch of serious. You're like, you know what, I'm sure that this is meant to be more fun, this thing that we spend all this time at, a third of our lives every single day. Like, come on. So I think it's great. And there is absolutely more room for play, I think, in all areas of our life, not just at work, but, outside. I think, somewhere along the line, we got a bit too serious with a few bits and pieces. For sure.
It can be, yeah. So I'd love all the listeners to find a way to be a bit more playful at work today.
Do you have any, what's your go-to play option or play resource if you had to run it for a team or for our listeners? Where can they find out more about play?
Oh, that's such a good question. There are some great people in America who have all sorts of toolkits. I mean, I guess if you Googled like icebreakers, so the
Yes.
corporate version of that is like you might start a team meeting with a bit of an icebreaker,
Yep.
something that's not entirely off topic, but it is about understanding each other as humans. And
Yep.
there's some really great icebreaker conversations. One I was doing with my niece on the weekend. I'll probably not work appropriate. It's if a spaceship came to your school today and took 3 of the people, who would you want them to take? Now that's not a very nice one. So we talked about how we weren't going to answer that one, but there were other things there about, what was your highlight of your week, or if you were a teacher for a day, what topic would you be the teacher for? Just any
Yeah.
kind of random thing that opens up a conversation to get to know each other better and to discover the authentic self within us, and questions that don't require a lot of psychological safety.
Yep.
So you don't want to ask a question like, what was the most traumatic thing that ever happened to you? Because
Yes.
that's not going to be really psychologically safe. It takes a lot of courage for someone to talk about that. So you
Yeah.
want the stuff that just kind of helps you see a little bit of the real person beneath.
Bit of humor. I remember being in a meeting once, and it was an icebreaker, but it was a very, forced icebreaker. But the icebreaker was around what was the most disgusting thing you've ever eaten,
Yes.
and you're like, oh gosh. So first you had to be like, what are all of the disgusting things I've ever eaten? So then
Oh,
you're like got
gross.
this like mental idea of like what if, like, if you've ever traveled and anywhere that's like anywhere. And it was,
Ew.
oh my gosh, I learned more about the team in that, 5-minute icebreaker about where they'd traveled, what they didn't like, and where someone
Yeah.
was like, oh, this was really disgusting. Someone else was like, oh, I tried that. And that wasn't the most disgusting. And it was such a funny conversation. You're
There
like,
you
oh my
go.
goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
hilarious stuff.
And see, what I love there, Ali, too, is like you start to discover the diversity of humans,
Yeah.
because we do get stuck in that trap of forgetting that not everyone's the same as us. Even when we know it, we
Yeah.
forget that people prefer to be motivated in different ways and communicate in different ways. And you do forget, you get biased back to your own style when you're under pressure and you've got a lot of tasks and you're trying to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And so conversations like that just kind of remind us that everyone's different. They experience different things. What one person loves, another person doesn't. And just helps you remember that you're a team that have to work each other out to work well together. So it's
Yeah.
so fun.
Oh man, it is so fun. Do you know what's been fun? Talking to you today. I've loved
Ditto.
this and a good segue, and learning more about you and what you do at Youth Ops. I think it's just incredible that young children are being, or young adults are being
Yeah.
educated. I keep calling them young children because I'm so used to talking about young kids.
You've got very
Uh,
little ones.
I
Yeah.
do. Young adults are learning some of these skills that, like you said, in your 30s, you didn't start learning. I don't think I learned a lot of this until I was probably in my 30s as well. And I'm a big Whitney Houston fan, and she's got a song around children are our future. If you've ever heard it, I won't sing it for
Yes.
you, but
Yes. Ah,
I just think that this
Penny.
is I guess it's just such a good springboard for children to be able to go through, young adults, older children,
Yeah.
teenagers, to go through, to be able to have that, that foundation piece before they've even really hit the workplace. And, the impact that it's going to be having on the community is truly amazing. So thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. No, I feel very fortunate to be part of it and to have a chat with you today. Thank you.
And for anyone who's listening, where can they follow you or find you, connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. My name will be spelled out, I guess, in Ali's notes because it's
Yes,
not
I'll
an
put the links.
easy one. But we are Youth Opportunities as our organisation. If you see a big blue and green star, you found us. Stars is one of our signature decisions, 4 big decisions. So yeah, you can have a look at our website, follow me or our organisation on LinkedIn, or we're pretty active on Facebook as well as Youth Opportunities. Yeah.
So quickly, just on that, the star, because I know you said stars, and was it black spots?
Black holes.
Black
Yeah.
holes. Tell me what
Yeah.
your star 4 big decisions. What's that?
Yeah. So our 4 big decisions, or when we talk to young people about their habits and attitudes, we talk to them about the 4 big decisions that good personal leaders will make every day. And it's a filter that you put all your decisions through about what you will and won't do, will and won't say, how you're moving your life forward. It's 4 big decisions. It's decide to be happy, decide to goal plan, decide to use stars, and decide to grow. And stars for us is positive communication. It's the one we start with. So a star is any sort of positive communication that makes you feel good or other people around you feel good. So it's self-talk, whether you're talking to yourself kindly or not. Are you sending yourself a black hole by saying, oh, I tried and I failed, I'm stupid? Or did you send yourself a star by saying, I tried and I'm really resilient and I'm going to get there one day because I know I can keep growing. And when you're sending, when you say to the students, so when you get home and you dump your bag at the door and you go in your room without saying hello to any of your parents in the house, do you reckon that's a star or a black hole? Do you reckon that's telling them, you haven't even said a word, but do you reckon that's telling them that you care about them or that you don't care about them? And what could be a star? How would you send a star to your parent when you got home? When you walk into a class and do you say hello to the teacher? Do you grunt at them? How would you send a star versus a black hole? And we talked to them about the impact of that communication. Like if you send a star, what happens next? Is you get stars back over time. Or if you send a black hole, you get black holes back. So you wonder why your teachers are grumpy at you all the time for talking in class. Well, do you think talking in class to your friend is a star or a black hole? You send a black hole, you got one back. So if you don't talk to your friend in class and you say hello to your teacher, what do you reckon you're going to get back? Experiment, try it, see what happens. See if anything changes. So that's stars and black holes. That's one of the most powerful ones, obviously. And yeah, decide to grow, decide to goal plan, and decide to be happy. And the decide to be happy one we spend a fair bit of time on too, because it's not toxic positivity, being in denial about reality. It's going out of your way to cultivate habits of happiness.
Yeah.
So it's all the good self-care stuff, but it's also things like looking for positives. How are you biasing your brain to notice the negative things in life, or are you biasing your brain to find the positive things? Because they're both there, negatives and positives are there, but you've got to have an attitude to find the positives. And things like random acts of kindness and gratitude lists. So how do you create a habit of happiness? And yes, you can have a habit that says everything in my life is terrible. Or you can choose to write a gratitude list every night. 3 things that are good. It doesn't mean the bad things go away. They're still there. But you can get into the habit of seeing the positives and creating a more happy environment for yourself.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a big fan of gratitude. I'm very grateful of gratitude. But yeah, we practice that here at Made for More as well. I think it's a good way to start the day.
Wonderful.
So before we leave, I mean, you're an incredible leader in your own right. Tell me, for any of our upcoming leaders, what would be your top 5 tips?
Oh, so many tips. So this is why I love the one-on-one stuff, because I do a lot of mentoring with young university graduates and young adults. And oh man, the tips are so specific. So I think I'd start with saying, go out and get coaches and mentors, whoever they are, whether they're at school, sports, friends, whoever. Get into the habit and develop the skills of talking to people about your ideas, asking for advice, finding mentors in your world that you can confide in, ask them questions, but also who will inspire you, whoever inspires you. If you've got a goal, go and find the person who's already achieving that goal and hang out with them. If you want to be a chief executive or a doctor, go find one and hang out with them, because they'll be able to give you more specific advice about how to get where they are and help you with where you're at. So that's helped me a lot, trusting myself and what I want, and then going and getting coaches and mentors to help me with that. Obviously, playfulness is a big one for me personally, and being, for me, that's authentic. So, you could just say generally be authentic. It's not easy to find your authentic self. Again, having lots of coaches and mentors helps with that. But it's been a journey for me to arrive at that being my authentic self, and I had lots of help from some amazing people to get there. I did these fantastic programs called Impact and Influence with Tamsin Simmons the last few years that helped me arrive at that aha moment. And for me, I get a lot of value from volunteering, so that, so much evidence that when we volunteer and be of service to others, which a lot of us attribute to purpose, having purpose, but doesn't necessarily have to be, that it actually improves our own well-being, our own sense of purpose, and our own skills and habits and attitudes as well. So I think if you're, feeling a bit down, directionless, not sure what you want to do, or you've just got some discretionary energy, go volunteer somewhere.
Energy.
If you've got some discretionary energy, go spend it in somewhere where you'll make the world better.
Love it.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that 5? Probably. It's probably
yes,
5.
That's 5. That is 5 wonderful tips for any of those upcoming leaders. And I love this discretionary energy. That's gold. Use that wherever you want. Love it. Thank you so much for all your time today. Of course, if you want to connect with Erin and check out Youth Ops, all the links will be in the show notes. But thank you again. You're doing amazing work.
Thanks, Ali. It's been great to talk to you. And yes, anybody that wants to get in touch to talk about how to work or support with Yo, we're Youth Ops, we're more than happy to have a chat.
Would love it. I'll put all of the links in the show notes so people can go directly there. Thank you.
Thank you.